Welcome back to our channel. Today we are going to have a look at part 2 on chapter 6 from the book My System by Aron Nimzowitsch. So in this video we are going to have a look at three different examples, and all three are regarding pieces which are active and passive. So, or rather attacking pieces versus defending pieces in the end game. So the first position, it talks about attacking rook and defending rook. So here it's white to move, and it's pretty obvious. If it's white to move, you simply have to bring the rook to behind the pass pawn, because rooks always belong behind the pass pawn. It's easier to attack that way. So if this is the case, now black will try to defend it, and as you can see, we have an attacking rook, and then this is the defending rook. When you have situations like this automatically becomes a winning endgame. Possible continuation is if the pawn goes forward, black might bring the king towards that pawn. However, here it's during this time the king can go to f4, and if black here tries to go and grab that pawn, there can be a trade of rooks, and eventually the pawn on f7 will fall, and this is a winning endgame. Now going back to this position here, we'll just make a random move, and here it's black to move. So what do you think black should move here? The correct move for black is to give a check and then go behind the pass pawn. So now this is a defensive rook, however it is behind the pass pawn, and it's now much easier to defend this position. So this second example in the book talks about knights, so attacking knights and defensive knights as well. Now this is a very good position. So when it comes to knights, the author brings up a very important point, which is knights have a weird L-shaped movement, and as a result, any knights which are defending pawns or even pieces are at a very bad disadvantage. We'll have a look at it. So here it's white to move. White can play knight e3. The whole point is to bring the knight to d5, and here as we can see, the knight is attacking the b6 pawn. At the same time, the black knight is defending it. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, the defensive knight becomes stuck at that one place. They cannot move along the diagonal or along a file or rank, and as a result, what will happen is that particular knight always have to stay at c8 simply to defend this pawn, and as a result it becomes zugzwang. So zugzwang means it's your move, you can't skip the move, you have to make a bad move in this. For example, black has to make a bad move, which is king g7, and here white comes all the way and comes closer to this knight. So eventually now this pawn falls, and this is a winning endgame. The second way of winning this is to simply play the king to d5, and here if the king moves, we have this knight e5 check. It obviously gives a check and also attacks this pawn, so the king has to be closer to this pawn, which means the king here can come to c6 and go near the knight, and once the knight moves, we obviously can pick the pawn, and this becomes a winning endgame. Finally, we look at same colored bishop endgames with pawns. So these kinds of endgames have been discussed in more details in my video series 100 Endgames You Must Know by Jesus de la Villa. I'll put a link in the description. Please have a look at it. So this is a pretty simple example. So the whole idea is the bishop is actually guarding the b8 square, preventing the pawn from promoting. So the whole idea for black, so for white, is to simply kick this bishop off and promote the pawn. So how can that be possible? First move is obviously bring the bishop to h4. If the king moves, you give a check, and the king moves to a6, then obviously have the c5 move. Here the bishop moves, now comes to e7, the king will come to b6. Now we give another check at d8. And here is a critical move. So here, like previous moves, if the king go to a6, obviously now it's a complete loss, because the bishop c7, it covers this b8 square, and this is a winning endgame for white. So the only move for black here is king c6, guarding this c7 square. So after here, white can try bishop h4. So the whole idea is if black takes, then you simply queen. So that is not possible. Black will simply play, keep control of the diagonal, play something like h2 and keep control of this diagonal. And here bishop f2. The whole idea is to bring the bishop now to b8 and try to kick the black bishop away from this diagonal. And here obviously the black bishop is forced to go away from the diagonal, and here we have bishop f4. The only move now makes sense for black is to play bishop a7 guarding that square, and this is when you play this lovely move bishop e3. The whole idea is now you have two scenarios. If black simply takes, obviously the white queens. At the same time, if black wants, there's no other way, black comes here, then obviously the king takes, and this is a winning endgame either. So I hope you enjoyed this video. For more videos like this, please like and subscribe, and it's bye for now.